Good evening, everyone. My topic for tonight is entitled Language and Gender. For the introduction, this chapter begins by considering the meaning of gender by contrasting it with sex, then turn to the issues of inequality of the sexes in language, the use of the generic he and other lexical items that represent women less favorably than men as an example of inequality. It talks also how men and women talk differently, and it shows also the connection between gender and sexuality through language. So gender. There is a strong relationship between language and gender. Here, sex is the biological state of male or the female, or this is the description of sex. So many linguists have used the term in this way in their research. In the first wave of linguistic studies of variation, academics were usually interested in broad patterns across a large population. Also, it makes sense to divide people according to their sex. So, in classification of people, so it divides sex, so either both male or female. So, however, later model used to explain the linguistic differences found between individuals culminated in recognition that sex is not always the best category of analysis. So, here, a sex is biological and gender is socially constructed. So meaning, so sex, that is your organ, and your gender, that is who you are in the society. Gender allows to make different distinctions and to talk people about as being masculine or feminine. So this is the difference between sex and gender. So gender, so it talks about your distinction. No, you are being masculine or feminine. So also gender rather than sex is crucial in understanding the different ways people perform their identity as well as how they are judged. So sometimes, especially women, they are judged quickly, because of their sex. But here, our topic give us the emphasis that there is a difference between sex and a gender. So gender rather sex is crucial in understanding. So then sex is not the same as gender. So because sex as a biological category has little influence on gender, so it isn't the case that all women and all men behave exactly like the other members of their biological sex group. So here gender then is not something a person has, it is something they accomplish through their behavior. So based on behavior, so clothing, habits, and speech. So this is the definition of gender. Then gender allows an understanding of people's behaviors in nuanced and detailed ways. And while it is true that a wide range of genders and gender performances are available, this does not mean they are all understood as equal. Although most countries have legally recognized the equality of men and women, there are still pervasive examples of everyday sexism, and they can be easily found in language. Now let's go to the sexism. So sexism, it is a prejudice. So here, so prejudice, you can judge it correctly or properly or easily. Stereotyping, there is what we call a stereotype. So when you are generalized, for example, so being your sex is female, so as we all know that men or men can do better than girls, because in some other countries, girls or the women have less rights than men, or discrimination. There is discrimination in other countries, typically against women or because of their sex. So sexism in language is an offensive reminder of the way the culture sees women. So according to Tapping 2013, while on official business in Malaysia, London Mayor Boris Johnson remarked that women only go to university to find husbands. So that is based on the research of Tapping 2013. So politics or the that UK British politician remarked on the difference between men and women. So he, according to him, claiming that women are better at finding mustard in the pantry, so while men are better at parking cars. So here, according to the politics that code that UK, that both women and men, they have their own capacity or differences. So while in on the other hand, women are better on finding mustard in the pantry, and while men on the other way, they are also good at parking cars. So he described feminism as passing passion created by shrill, bored, middle-class women of a certain physical genre. So let's now go to the inequality at the lexical level. So what do you think? Are there an equality at the lexical level? So there are a few differences between the terms referring to men and the equivalent terms for women. Just the word like this. So here the word bachelor. So meaning bachelor, this represent for men, and the spinster for women, or so both they are unmarried adults. Then it becomes apparent that bachelor is a positive while spinster is negative. So uh, to inequality of lexical level, because when the term used for a man, no, they are positive, and some words or some lexical terms used for women are negative. So it becomes apparent that bachelor is positive while spinster is negative. So this is what we call collocation. So these common collocations for bachelors are eligible bachelor or bachelor pad. These collocations reflect a positive view of single life for men. Their lifestyle is desirable and they too are desirable. So here the word spinster, no, in the other hand, is more likely to be collocated with lonely or old and suggest an image of an older and attractive woman. So it's very sad that women are affected by the lexical collocation. So the two different terms for unmarried adults suggest more generally that being unmarried is a positive characteristic for a man but negative for a woman. So as we know that when man uh, does not married or that is married, so there is what we call a positive collocation, but well while woman does not married, there is a negative collocation for the woman. So the difference between bachelor and spinster and terms similar to this can be discussed in terms of lexical asymmetry, because terms that are meant to be referring to equivalent positions for women and men are not actually used in the same way. So asymmetry. So asymmetry, it is called lack of equality or equivalence between men or women. So lexical asymmetry. So these patterns of asymmetry generally go in one direction. So the negative judgments are related to the female rule. So according to Schools 1975, but not the male one. So negativity that attaches to spinster is found in connection with marked terms referring to women. So example is actress refers to a female actor. So the negativity so the negative or the negativity no found in connection no with the women or the word spinster is called the mark terms, or the mark terms referring to the woman. So a term is mark no when it has a relationship with a seemingly neutral and generic counterpart. So when we say or when we know that a term is marked when there is what we call the relationship between or it's called neutral and generic counterpart. So unmarked, the term it refers to male and actor is in general. So for the boys or for the man it's called an unmarked. For the women it's called marked terms. So in the context of gender, we find the terms referring to men are generally unmarked. So in the context of gender, so based on gender, so the word um, the 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 unmarked terms are for the men, no and considered neutral, while those referring to women are called the unmarked for women and marked. Okay, context gender men are unmarked. So women referring to sex are marked. So similar examples are like these. So for friends for the man or the male, and the princess for women, so waiter, waitress, host, hostess, and so on. So this marking would not be problematic if we are not for the asymmetry. So because of the asymmetry, so it becomes problematic. So this is good, but because of the lexical asymmetry, it becomes problematic because it is no unequal. It is not equivalent, no, the rights for or the term for men and women. So female occupation terms often have negative connotations. So this can be seen in the master or mistress pair. While master is position of authority, mistress has undertones of loss of sexuality. So now let's proceed to the generic he. So in relation to some terms, especially occupations term, example given, the host or the hostess, manager or the manageress, it is often argued that the male term is not really sexed, but rather is generic and refers to both sexes. So however, raises the question of why female marked terms are required at all. Some of the problems with supposed generic terms become clear when considering pronouns. So examples are the following. Every student should bring his books to class. So every student should bring their books to class. Then everyone should cast this vote on polling day, and everyone should cast their vote on polling day. So here, so we can say that every is a singular word and everyone is a singular word, but they use the plural form or the plural pronoun there represent to the book. So the prescriptivist must argue that letter A and C above are the only acceptable forms. The suggestions that one could use there as in B and D in this context is met with the objection that such use would result in disagreement in terms of number. So in other words, every and everyone suggests the singular form. So um, A and B or A and C are the acceptable one because everyone is singular, so it must be it must that the pronoun also is singular. Then but according to the prescriptivist, it is wrong. So this is despite the fact that singular they and there has a long history of use in this way. So according to Budin 1975, prescriptivists have argued that number agreement is more important than representing both sexes. However, Baronowski investigated the use of generic pronouns in the British and American press and found that he is no longer the preferred singular epicene pronoun in English. So it is found in 2002, page 395, and they is the most common and encouraged by guides on writing styles. Example given, the National Council of Teachers of English or the NCTE 2002 Linguistics Society of America 1996. So, sexism in word order. The recent acceptability of they as generic does not mean that sexism in language has been eradicated. Even the order of words can demonstrate gender inequality. So according to Heidi Mochenbacher 2013, examine the patterns of ordering when both a male and a female are mentioned in a noun phrase. While one often hears ladies and gentlemen when an audience or other large gathering is addressed, this ordering is unusual. It is far more common for the male noun to be placed first and in man and wife. So in the majority of cases of personal binomials, Mutzenbacher 2013 found that the male form comes before the female. So the instances where this does not occur are domains that are considered feminine. So specifically, parenting and children, this tells us that there are some fields that belong to women. The ordering of binomials is so deeply ingrained that women included in binomial may not be given priority even in a text where women are the focus. So here, let's proceed to the semantic derogation. So what is semantic derogation? So it refers to the process by which a word comes to have negative meanings over time. So example of this, the word spinster. So it is referred to a person who spun yarn in the Old English Dictionary. So while this term could be used about men, it most often used to refer to women, probably because this work was typically done by women. So another example is the word slut too has been subject to derogation. In 1402, it meant a woman of dirty, slovenly, or untidy habits or appearance, a foul slattern in the Old English Dictionary. So only later did it become linked to loose sexual morality. For examples of semantic derogations relating to women can be found in the domain of animals. So according to Schulz 1975, shows that animal terms acquire negative connotations. So example given are the following: the pig, dog, and the cow once associated with women. So here, derogation and sexism toward women through language is not always obvious. So according to Heinz 1999 research on associations of women with food shows how difficult it can be to notice and appreciate the ways women are objectified in language. And Heinz also added in his document that a woman as dessert metaphor, so drawing attention to the way women are conceptualized as something sweet to be eaten and shared. She provides a list of desserts that are also used to refer to women below. So like for example, so the words that refer to women are the following: the cheesecake, the cherry pie, the pound cake, the cookie, the crumpet, and the cupcake. So there are many semantic fields in which this kind of derogation occurs. So as Schulz remarks, again and again in the history of language, one finds that a perfectly innocent term designating a girl or woman may begin with totally neutral or even positive connotations, but that gradually it acquires negative implications after a period of time becoming abusive and ending a sexual slur, according to Schools 1975, page 65. Now let's proceed to the differences in language used during being a man or woman. In 1975, Robin Lakoff published Language and Woman's Place. While this book has been criticized for its introspective nature. So, example given, Du Bois and Crouch 1975, the questions it raised and the features of women's language that a lack of identified led to a great deal of research on women's language. So according to Lakoffs, he also argues that women's language is characterized by several features, including the avoidance of swear words, the use of hedges or fillers, or sort of the use of tag questions, empty adjectives, intensifiers, specific color terms, more standard syntax, a rising intonation, and declaratives and high levels of politeness. Lakoff's 1975. Next, also, Lakoff's features provide us with an account of what people expect from women in their language use. An important feature of the concept women's language is not that there actually is a way that men and women use language differently, but that society expects them to do so without questioning this expectation. So, lack of identified tag questions part of women's language. So, this is lack of who identified tag questions part of women's language. So, 1975. So, women's use of tag questions interpreted as expressing uncertainty and a lack of confidence. Tag questions can have a modal or affective meaning. So, modal in this context refers to the amount of certainty the speaker is expressing, while affective tags signal the speaker's attitude to the addressee or even the topic being discussed. So people use tag questions to express uncertainty, but they also use them to invite another person to speak or to signal that what is being discussed or said is sensitive. Research shows that while women use more tag questions, they are more likely to be affective tags that facilitate conversation, according to Holmes 1984. So, Holmes also added that research more than half of women's tag questions were of this type. In contrast, the majority of tag questions used by men were modal, that is, they express as uncertainty. So people take as given the difference between men and women. One of the consequences of this is that we have no trouble accepting the idea that women and men use language differently. What we see in the detail of this assumption is that women are thought to use less powerful language as a reflection of their lower position in the social hierarchy. So here, there is what we call assumption that no, women, they are considered less powerful, no, in the social hierarchy. That's why they thought also that the words come from the women are also less, no, less powerful language. So there is what an equality. So here, let's talk about the gossip. So gossip usually refers to talk about other people. So it is also often considered to be meaningless, unreliable information, and sometimes even malicious. So According to Deborah Jones, defines gossip as a way of talking between women in their roles as women, intimate in style, personal and domestic in topic and setting. 1980, page 194. So according to Jones, gossip is something that women do with close friends, often in their homes or other private settings. So while Coates argues that Jones' claim that gossip revolves around women's roles as wives, girlfriends, and mothers is too strong. So 2011, page 201, this kind of talk allows women to explore and negotiate what it means to be a woman in a variety of contexts. So here, um, the shared floor. So the shared floor is more than one person speaking. So when there is one person speaking at once without any members of the conversation expressing an objection to that, that is what we call a shared floor. When one person is speaking at once without any members. So when you are talking to someone, or a person talking to someone, when he alone talking to someone without um, any accompanying, um, or any people no involved in conversation, so that what we call a shared floor. So here, so when there is a signals that participants are paying rather attention to the speaker, so there in a conversation there is what we call a minimal response. So when there is one person or one there is a participant, so paying attention or listening to that conversation, so there is what we call the minimal responses. So also known as the back channeling. So in the communication code, so there is what we call the receiver of the the a message. So they do this providing small utterances such as yeah, without disrupting or interrupting the current speaker. So that's the back channeling. So hedging also are the typical of women's conversation with each other. So when the women are talking with each other, or in their communication or in their conversation, so when women are talking to each other or gossiping to each other, so and there's a conversation with them, so that's we call hedging. So women tend to be cooperative in this context. They construct a shared floor, provide support for the speaker, and carefully manage any points of conflict or disagreements. So according to Coates chapter 1996. So Coates argues that the function of gossip is the maintenance of good social relationships. So according to Coates, so some researcher, they might say that no, gossiping is, it can cause or break up relationship. It can damage the reputation of others. But according to Coates, Coates argues that the function of gossip, he or she believes that the function is gossip is, it's for the maintenance of good social relationships. So in the community, so according to Coates, that it's very important. Gossip is very important. So without gossip, you cannot maintain, or you cannot have the good social relationship with your the people in the community or in the society. So talk is an important way of building and sustaining relationship between people. So the relation function of patrick talk is clear in the case of gossip. So maybe in this case that quotes, um uh he, he or she focuses that the the advantage only the advantages of the gossip. So gossip, advantages of gossip. So according to her or him, that it can promote or it can maintain good social relationship, and also this is only also the only way of building and sustaining relationship with the people of where that people are living with, or it can also build a relational function or the patic talk. So gossip also is a way of exploring, negotiating, and contesting social norms for many speakers. So according to some speakers, that it is also a way of exploring, exploring to their identity to others, the negotiating, so negotiating in whatever, whether about their family or about their friends, or negotiating with something, and contesting social norms. So androcentric roles means that men's language is unmarked and women's language is marked. So here, so according to this androcentric rules, no, this rule states that anything women do linguistically will be negatively judged, and everything men do with language will be shown as normal. So there is what also called the an equivalent, because here, according to this rule, that this rule favors only for the men, for the benefit of the men, but for the uh, but for the moment, it's um, generalized all women, or all the works of women, or talk of women are negatively judged. They are automatically judged when woman or women speak. Woman speaks, or the women speak, so automatically they will judge, because for them that no, they have no right. Then this androcentric role also is a gender specific statement of the more general process of linguistic subordinations, according to Leakey Green 1997. So according also to Wolfram and Skilling Estes 1998, page 6, describe this is a principle whereby the speech of socially subordinate groups will be interpreted as linguistically inadequate by comparison with that of socially dominant groups. So the belief that women talk more than men is pervasive one. So as the proverbs listed above suggest, many cultures pass judgment on how much women talk. So according to the research, that women use 20,000 words a day, while men only use 7,000 words. So according to linguist Mark, or the Lieberman 2006 attempted to find the source of these figures for word used by men and women. So he exhaustive research found no study to support this uh, figure. So here is also a hearsay. So according to no words, or no, there is no evidence or no support to this claim. So a public talk has the purpose of informing or persuading, and is often associated with higher status or power. Example given, one generally has to be invited in to participate in public talk in some way. And the public talk is, when you are speaking in public, when you're in a public talk, or in a public purposes. So in a private talk, it serves as interpersonal functions, such as making social connection, developing relationship, and so on. So example of private talk, when your manager asks you for something, or requesting you, just like when the teacher, no um ask his student to do something. So it's in done in a private way. So that's different of public talk and a private talk. So there is in a public, some presence of the public, or many people. So silence is golden. So when is silence golden? So according to Spender 1980 suggests that the belief that women talk too much is explained by the fact that any talk from a woman is considered too much. So women do not need to speak very much in order to perceive as speaking too much. So according to Cameron 2011, 1997, so examine the speech of all male group of college students. While their talk can be discussed in terms of the typical features or male talk, we can also examine it in terms of functions of gossip that we discussed previously. According to Cameron's research, um, is a transcript of the talk of 5 young white middle-class men while watching sports. The sports talk is considered to be masculine activity, but as a number of scholars have noted, it bears many similarities to women's talk. So, according to Johnson and Finlay, 1998, Kuiper, 1991, so sports talk, when you're talking for, I think, only the boys will talk because men or the women, men, they are engaged in watching sports rather than women. I know that there are also some women engaged in playing sports, but unlike with the men. So Cameron describes male talk as competitive, hierarchically organized centers on impersonal topics and exchange of information and foreground. So here, according to Cameron, that for the male talk, no, some according to some researchers, that the female talk, they are no less like the um unlike for the male talk, no, it's considered as competitive, no, and hierarchy. Unlike for the female talk, no, considered less, so organized centers, and the male talk is focusing on the impersonal topics, exchange information foreground. So speech genres such as joking, trading insults, and sports statistic. Cameron 2011, page 179. Language also, in the gender talk, it's the performing identity. So language is also an important way perform to their gender, and while the gender a person performs can be understood as the sum total of all of these choices. Here we focus on what the use of one word tells us about how to do being a heterosexual man. According to Kisling 2005, describes how young men in a fraternity use the words dude. Dude is a very useful form of address. It can be used at the start or end of an utterance. So in example 6.5a and b, and has a range of meanings depending on the intonations of the speaker, uses Kisling 2005, page 291. So example here in the letter A, dude it was like boys in the hood, man, or ain't no like Kisling 2005, page 294. So in letter B, everybody plays that dumb game, dude. Kisling 2005, page 295. So Kisling argues that dudes projects a stance of solidarity and camaraderie, but crucially in a nonchalant, not too enthusiastic manner. 2005, page 200, Kisling 2005, page 282. So that is, dude can be used to express friendship without being too affectionate by projecting a stance of cool solidarity. Kisling 2005, page 282. So societal expectations for heterosexual men are such that they should express too much closeness in their friendships, especially with men. So according to societal expectations, if a man were to express his positive regard for a male friend, he risk being perceived as homosexual. So here is no like here, whenever it's very rampant that we can hear, or no, you can hear a rumor that when no both man or male go together na di ka no, then the people might think, or the people will say that uh, those people, they are homosexual or they are gay. So no, so expressing solidarity among friends therefore is potentially in conflict with those societal expectations. So when the society, no, societal expectation, so it's also the societal expectation will no sometimes judge no, when the two individual go together, especially with the same sex, or they will the issue will be thrown to them. Then according to Kessling suggests that Dude allows men to create a stance with this narrow range, no one of closeness with other men, satisfying masculine solidarity that also maintains casual stance that keeps some distance, thus satisfying heterosexism. uh, Kessling 2005 page 283. So according to Jones 2011, no, explores the talk of women who make reference to what it means to be a proper lesbian. So Jones explains that it is not the case that all lesbians women speak in the same way or perform being a woman in the same way. So that is to say, we perform our identities, and these identities are not stable but shift according to the context. So according to Jones, that no, not all lesbian, no, or not all the lesbian, no, they are no, they perform in a different way, no, different way, and they also perform with they are in no, not stable, no. So all male, all female, or especially the lesbian, no, they are um unlikely, so they are different. So for summary, inequality between women and men is still an important concern in contemporary society, and that women continue to have less status than men. So that's very true until now. So especially when you are living, especially the in the rural areas, no, in mountain areas, or in some place or some countries, that no, that these rules are still no, you can see, no, especially those women, no, the value of women, the rights of women are not like the same. So there are also some women's groups, no, they will you will also they have their way on how to express their rights. So um because of the inequality, that's we can say we can see that there is the woman power or the women power. No, the status difference is reflected in other examples I've considered, so including beliefs about the quantity of talk and whose right to the floor in different contexts. So so some parts of the, maybe in the Philippines, so we can also that women are the less value in the society, even though in the family planning. So especially those people, or those family, especially the breadwinner is the male, and the woman is only stay taking care of the children. But but no, while their claims are made, so but about the difference between the way men and women use language, men and women also do similar things. So So I think women can, when men can do this, also women can do this. So I think what men can do, women also can do. So they can do similar things what men also can do. So as the example of gossip shows, so moreover difference in language used are the best explained by the way people are expected to perform their gender. So rather than because of any innate difference between men and women. So the performance of identity, including gender identity, is complex and important. So here, so even though that we are complex, no, in our identity, but we should respect the rights of women. So they are also like us, no. So that's all. Thank you. Good evening. Thank you, and that would be all. God bless.